So this evening we're going to explore how dogs embody or reflect dharmic principles, as well as consider how our interactions with dogs, doesn't have to just be dogs, but that's what we're talking about tonight, can support Buddhist practice. So maybe you've heard it said, if we're open, we will discover there are teachers and opportunities for practice in every moment. And that topic by itself could be an entire talk. But this evening, we'd like to share our experiences with some particular teachers in our lives, our dogs. So we hope even if you do not have a dog, tonight's offering will be interesting and useful to you in some way. Should we just introduce their names before we get too far?
Let the cat out of the bag, yeah.
Let the cat out. Sorry. On this side are my two current dogs. The larger one is Callie, who you'll hear more about tonight, and the one behind her, is Pepper, who is 12 and a half years old. And some of you have probably heard me talk about her before. We've been through a few medical emergencies with Pepper.
Yeah, and the ones in the middle, they're kind of matchy with the others. On the tan one is Arya, as in Four Noble Truths version of Arya. And then Bhakti, or yes, love for devotion. And then Cooper up in the upper right. This is in memory of him. He passed last fall.
I should say Callie's name, her full name is Callie Ann, which when I was trying to think of a name for her, she's my spiritual friend. So she's Callie for short. But. So Cesar Millan, who many know as the dog whisperer from a TV program many years ago, says, you don't always get the dog you want, you get the dog you need. So I've had dogs in my life, all my life. We had schnauzers when I was growing up. They were just part of the house, part of the family. The first dog I got on my own was after I graduated from college and moved to a different state. And I felt alone and I wanted a friend. So I went to the shelter and adopted Morgan, who was a small shepherd mix. And she was perfect. If any of you are dog people, sometimes you know you actually do get the perfect dog. And she was perfect. And she was the first, which made it hard for everybody else. And she was pregnant. So my intention of finding a friend for me turned into helping this sweet girl have 10 puppies. Oh. And my boyfriend, now husband, and I found loving homes for them all, including one for us and two for my parents. I reflect now how the lives of each of those creatures touched many other lives. We have adopted other rescue dogs since that time. There was Ramsey, the feisty cattle dog mix and my constant companion, and Shivers, a German shepherd who had lived her life in a crate and was used for breeding. Then Pepper, who we still have and who has offered many teachings on impermanence and grasping in recent months. And now Callie, a little pit bull with a silly personality and multiple medical issues. Each of them so different, and each has taught me so much. But it wasn't until adopting Callie and working with an amazing trainer, Jess, that the deeper awareness of all the ways a relationship with a dog is also Dharma became clear. Would you like to talk a little bit about your experience with dogs?
I could talk, but I tend to talk and think too much, and that's part of why dogs tend to be my teachers, to get out of that conceptual hamster wheel. I guess the only other thing I would add to your wonderful introduction is this isn't really about dogs. It's around the lessons that we can learn, whether it's from, another type of pet, a loved one, a parent, a child. So just wanting to generalize pump up the volume, says Sherry. So I wanted to just frame that so that we can have an ability to generalize to our own situation. Maybe we're not a dog lover. Maybe we actually don't like dogs. That's okay. We're going for the spirit beneath it, and we're hoping to touch into something underneath.
Thank you. So one thing I learned from my wonderful Dharma teacher, Jess, the dog trainer, is that currently the approach for teaching dogs focuses on helping them to be calm, to settle. And I think that's just lovely that it goes along with, what we're all doing, really. And so we're going to do a brief settle practice together. And I hope it feels enjoyable to you. And it's only going to be about 10 minutes. And if at any point you don't feel comfortable or want to do what I'm suggesting, please choose whatever feels more comfortable for you. But I am actually going to ask you to stand up to settle. So I'm inviting you to bring awareness fully to this body, standing here, feeling gravity weighing you down, all the way down to your feet. And just like when we're sitting, we're standing in a dignified posture, noticing how are your shoulders right now? Do you feel like you'd like to roll them back? Back straight. And breathing. You can close your eyes if that feels comfortable, but if you're not comfortable as you're standing here at any time, feel free to keep them open. And since we are focusing on actually settling ourselves here, we're going to once again bring awareness, if you'd like, down to the soles of your feet. Just noticing what's there. There might be warmth or coolness, feeling the weight of the body. And feeling the earth rising up, meeting you, creating a feeling of foundation. And now I'm going to invite you to begin to slowly rock from one foot, whatever pace suits you, to the other. Just a gentle rocking movement. Just noticing sensations, changing of pressure, anything that enters your awareness. And the body seems to just know. It knows when it wants to move, just letting it go that way and rocking. And while you're rocking, perhaps becoming aware of breath. Again, we're not changing how we're breathing, but just aware. Breathing and rocking. Connecting with our natural presence. Body moving. Body breathing. You may even try and experiment with breathing in when you move to one side and breathing out when you move to the other. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Gently. And doing that a few more times. And then coming back to center. Again, feeling grounded. And if you don't feel that, that's okay. So whatever you feel is okay. Continuing to follow the breath. If you'd like to sit down for the last few minutes or remain standing, whatever feels more comfortable for you. It's just seeing if there can be a connection with feeling settled, present.
Thank you, Anna. don't think there's anything to say after that. But alas, I will say something. I'm going to look at my notes from my phone here. After turning on Do Not Disturb. So in the next 15 minutes, I'm just going to offer some thoughts, some ponderings before our break. And I'm going to be talking about 8 different aspects of the nature of dogs or other pets or loved ones that I find particularly meaningful and helpful on my path. And then we're going to revisit those same, a subset of those 8 in our second meditation after the break. So we may be asking, why dogs and why now? So for me, I've always just had a heart connection to dogs, whether it was our poor husky growing up in 90-degree weather and going in a kiddie pool, or Cooper, and now Arya and Bhakti. And for me, having dogs has been, I would say, essential in times when I've felt lonely and isolated. And I would broaden that by saying, in the state of our country and the world, we're probably familiar with the Surgeon General's advisory and declaration of a public health emergency around loneliness, disconnection, lack of belonging. And for those who may be more introverted or isolated, either geographically or otherwise, animal companions and teachers can be of great value, I think. So, dogs can be beloved companions, but beyond just cuteness or loyalty, what can they actually teach us about the path of awakening, and how might our relationship with our dogs support or even deepen our spiritual practice? So the first of these 8 aspects that I want to share with you is one that you might expect. So dogs are naturally present beings. So they don't read sutras, but they sure know how to live in the moment. And this, of course, is a reflection of sati, or mindfulness. And they're beautifully in the present. They don't dwell on the kibble that they spilled yesterday, on the one squirrel that got away. And they don't worry about, what's going to happen tomorrow. They're just fully present in the here and now. And I at least can learn a lot from that, because I'm about 99% in the past or in the future. Yeah, so they're not worrying, they're not stressing, they're not ruminating, unless it's on grass, but they're just right here, right now. And that comes with, heightened senses and a focus on, our sense doorways. Certainly the sense of smell is acute, in dogs, and just that attention, that single-pointed focus on figuring out who's been here, and how long ago. Or it could be a sound, or of course the taste of food, or our return through the door. So in this way, dogs can be a mirror for own practice in our attempts to cultivate more mindfulness or presence-fulness in our lives, and return back to that precious present moment. Yeah, so that's number 1, dogs as reflections of presence. And then the second quality around the nature of dogs that I'd like to share is around metta, or unconditional loving kindness, a warmth, almost bordering on devotion. So yeah, dogs can model this. They don't care about, how much money I make. It's not much. Or the perfect meditation posture. They don't hold grudges. I mean, maybe for a little bit. But yeah, one story around these, 9-month-old puppies is, they're brothers, so they're always wrestling and stuff. Every now and then they get into an outright brawl. They're either competing for, the same toy or food. And it's just like it takes every, bit of strength for me to wrench them apart. And then like 10 seconds later, they're just sleeping on each other and they're just, so it's like that, just letting go, no grudges. And so, later on we'll explore, imagine what would happen if we could approach all beings with the same kind of openness and care. Not because they've earned it in some way, but simply because they are, reflecting our Buddha nature, our fundamental innate goodness, as Chogyam Trungpa referred to it. And sometimes for me, this whole metta thing, it's kind of like this abstract concept up in my head, floating around. But for me, when we're out in the rain, it's a muddy, messy kind of loving, unconditional love. It's playful, and so I think this quality is even present in animals who have been abused, that they can, relatively quickly forgive and overcome that trauma, with time and support. So I think this all points to, just our fundamental innate goodness and our original nature of unconditional love. So yeah, having a dog in our lives to me is a constant reminder of what love looks like. Simple, easy, warm, and present. So the third aspect I'd like to share is two concepts, one around simplicity and one around non-attachment, sometimes referred to as renunciation. And this refers more towards contentment with what we have rather than actively pushing something that we want away. It's just, letting the good thing come, but also letting it go. And for my dogs, they're generally content just, with a little toy, a slipper, maybe ideally a stick. Just, they were, before I came here, I was doing some yoga, some asana practice. And one of them, he made his squeaky toy into a pillow. And he was just like on there, just looking at me practice yoga. And he looked so happy. And so this reminder of joy is really special for me. And then the next one is related to routine and the power of practice. So you may know that dogs love routines, whether it's a morning walk, a breakfast, nap, rinse and repeat. And they're really kind of seem dedicated to these simple and natural rhythms. When the sun comes up, they're up. And so I think there's an analogy here to having dogs help us to, at least for me, I'll just refer to myself, to developing more regularity and in my practice, in my daily practice, and to show up and trust the path even when it starts to get repetitive. Okay, so just 4 more that I wanted to share with you. So the next one is around instinct and conditioning. And this might be anthropomorphizing, but I don't think it is. Karma. I mean, karma applies to all sentient beings, so I don't think it applies deeply. But like many of us, dogs are deeply conditioned. There's a lot of habitual patterns. Maybe they've extended back lifetimes if you subscribe to that belief system. But like if I see, my dog start to lunge after a squirrel, or, a rabbit, it's kind of like witnessing maybe karma in real time. It's, there's no thought process in between. It's squirrel, go. It's not like, oh, that's a squirrel. I wonder how big he is. I wonder, how my knee is going to hold up running after. It just go. And, I know we talk about like, let's try to introduce a choice point between the stimulus and the response. So I'm not, discouraging that. I'm just highlighting, the power of instinct, of behavioral patterns being so grounded into our DNA. And, I think that the relatively recent work in epigenetics points to that as well. And yet, with patience and training, the habits, at least for myself, if I can be patient towards training myself, I can notice habit shifting. And we might see or I see in working with my dogs that they become a mirror of where they're showing me my own behavior patterns that aren't so great. I get easily distracted, and just going to one room and forgetting why I went there. And it's like, so just having the dogs like follow me along and like, are we going back in that room again? And been there 12 times already. Yeah, it shines a new light on, my habitual behavior patterns. And so, yeah, if I could apply the same kind of gentle yet firm when necessary, compassion and effort to training my dogs as I do to myself, then I'll be in good shape. Which brings me to number 6, patience and letting go. If you've ever trained a dog, you probably know it takes patience, and more patience. And rarely I will get really annoyed at these dogs, when they have peed on the rug, just when I finish cleaning one up and get the whole routine with the enzymatic spray. And sometimes, get a little bit of a short fuse, but, when I see them just gazing up at me lovingly with this quizzical look, or why do you keep spraying that stuff? It's, it's just like it softens it. And that reminds me to soften towards myself as well. And, so just to bring in, another stream here in the training that I've used a dog trainer for the first time, and she always says she's training me, not the dogs. And I've started to learn that the value of simplicity, just ask them to do one thing, get the timing right for the treat. And that reminds me of, one of Brene Brown's mantra, the clear is kind, just be direct, be kind. And that's the most effective way to move forward. So I've been learning how to reduce unnecessary complexity. So these last two refer to anicca and dukkha and anatta. So, this acceptance of change. So when my dear little Cooper was starting to grow old, he started to slow down. He was a hiking maniac. He walked on one hike, he did like 12.5 miles on his own. And then he started to just slow down. He started to saunter a bit more, but he didn't seem stressed about it. He was like, I'm just going to walk at my own pace. If I'm tired, I'm going to sit down in the middle of the path and not move. And by golly, that's what he did. And so they didn't seem, I just turned 50 and I'm like, oh my gosh, my memory is getting worse. I get more aches. And it's like, I stress about it, but of course I have no idea what was going on in Cooper's head, or, it's just, for me, I've noticed the opportunity to bring more grace to my process of accepting change. And then finally, embracing death without fear. So this relates into dukkha, or the marks of existence, as well as fundamental selflessness in the context of emptiness, or anatta. So when Cooper got a GI lymphoma, he gradually stopped eating, and he lost about half of his body weight. He went from 12 pounds to 6. And he was just like, it didn't seem to be in struggle. He didn't seem to be in struggle that much. The vet said he probably wasn't in pain, but it was almost as if he were trying to say, it's my time to go. And that he just wanted to be around me, and I was fussing and trying every single diet I could think of, talking to 16 vets, and And so I learned a lot through that process, and very grateful that when he did cross the Rainbow Bridge, as it's called, that he was right in my arms. And I had called a hospice vet to come over and um, possibly administer the euthanasia because there was no chance for recovery, and it just wasn't sitting right. And so I called the hospice vet and said, "Hey, can we delay this a day?" And she said, "Of course." And it turns out that 2 hours after she was supposed to come, Cooper died. And so it's like I'm getting chills right now, even just thinking about it. And so lots of good memories. So I do want to just offer a few words in closing before we go into our break. And the first thing I would say is to invite us to not underestimate the silent yet profound teachings that our animal and perhaps human companions offer us. So in their own simple way, dogs kind of live the Dharma. So next time my dog plops down next to me on my meditation cushion, I'm going to try to think they're not interrupting my practice. Maybe they are my practice. So yeah, what if my dog is my teacher of dogs, and kind of like a furry bodhisattva in disguise? And Anna's going to share some more about that after our break. But during the break, of course, please do socialize. But I would also encourage you maybe to consider that maybe our dogs are showing us how to be present, to love fully, to let go, and to just sit together. Thank you.
Much of what I'm going to share will perhaps feel like I'm covering again some of what Matt has said, but anyway, I hope it has meaning. So I adopted Callie. I should have put her other picture up. I have picture. She's a big goofball, where she's like on her back sliding down the hill of our backyard. I mean, she has just brought so much energy and joy. But anyway, I adopted Callie, a young pit bull, because I wanted something just for me. I wanted to add young, playful energy to our lives and to have a reliable walking partner. Quick side note, she cannot take walks. She has elbow disease. It's been quite interesting, but and I also want to point, does anyone here grasping in any of what I just said? I did this because I wanted. So in many ways, I got what I wanted. I'm outside more often, wandering around the backyard, attached to the leash because we can't let her go. So I just wander with her wherever she would like to go, and taking in what I had forgotten. I can't remember the last time I really just wandered around just in my backyard. Probably not even when I had kids. So I noticed that I can find beauty even when the weather isn't perfect. I have a pretty powerful don't want to mind. And when we adopted her in February and it was snowing, I don't want to go outside at 8:30 this morning and just wander around. And yet I'm always happy. I'm always happy after I do. So there have been many moments of awe, and we definitely have young, playful energy in the house, and I'm grateful for all of this. But as I said earlier, Caesar says, you don't always get the dog you want, you get the dog you need. So there have been many challenges as well. So when reflecting on a relationship with dogs, it's possible to be aware, like Matt pointed out, it's all Dharma, all of it. As Matt shared, the nature of dogs invites us to be more mindful, requires us to be equanimous, reminds us of impermanence and interconnection, and helps us to practice wise speech and wise action. It's all part of interbeing with the dog. In his book, and I meant to bring it tonight, it's an oldie, Be the Pack Leader. Cesar Millan teaches that to have a healthy relationship with the dog, as Matt already said, we must work on ourselves. It turns out the book is full of Dharma teachings. His overall message is that it's not the dogs that needed his help, but the humans who were out of balance. Cesar describes 4 areas of well-being that need to be in balance in humans. Intellectual, which we in our culture practice the most. Thinking mind, cognitive. Emotional, often the driver of our actions without awareness. Spiritual, the desire to be connected to something bigger than ourselves. And instinctual. Cesar says to be instinctual means to be clear-headed, open, and aware of the signals we are getting from other people, animals, and our environment all the time. He goes on to say, it means understanding our connection to our natural selves and the natural world and acknowledging our interdependence with that world. In his book, Cesar says our instinctual nature is the one from which most people are disconnected. He believes this is part of the reason we are not able to be good stewards of the earth and of each other. He goes on to note humans are the only species on earth that will follow a totally unbalanced, unstable leader. Yeah, this book was written in the 90s. Cesar says that dogs exist in the instinctual realm that Matt elaborated for us so beautifully. They know when the humans around them are out of balance, even when we do not know it ourselves. We can fool others. How are you? Fine. Not good. Fine. And ourselves, we can fool ourselves. I'm okay. I'm okay, right? I'm okay. But we can't fool them. And they let us know. He reminds us, and as Matt also said, remember your dog is a mirror. The behavior you get back is usually in some way a reflection of your own. And when you try to correct your dog out of anger, you are usually more out of control than your dog is. You are fulfilling your own needs, not the animals, and in a profoundly unhealthy way. Excuse me. Trust me, your dog will sense your unstable energy and often escalate her unwanted behavior instead. It's a great cycle. So our household was comfortably set in its ways and in routine. Then we brought Callie into our lives. Young, smart, and full of energy in a house with 3 cats, an old dog, and us. We knew we needed the support of a trainer to help Callie join our family. So we called Jess. She goes by Jess the Mess. And I hope she gets to watch this talk, but she is a beautiful teacher. And if you're interested in reading her webpage, she tells you why she's Jess the Mess. And I have learned so much from her, as well as Callie and Pepper. So one day, when feeling particularly overwhelmed, while this wild child was running around me like a maniac, and I'm being quite literal. When we first got her, she would bounce off your back if you turned your back to her. She doesn't do that anymore. I reached out to Jess, and this is what Jess said. She's not trying to misbehave. She just doesn't understand what is expected of her. That one statement invited a long pause. She's not trying to misbehave. She just doesn't understand what is expected of her. Of course that was true. Jess's statement made me aware of how much I was taking her behavior personally. I, me, and mine. She isn't listening to me. She's annoying me. I'm very impressed. Matt said sometimes he gets annoyed. I think to myself, oh, she's not acting the way I want her to. When I was caught in the personal pronoun, my patience wore thin, and I felt overwhelmed. And I wasn't very skillful at helping Callie learn what was expected of her. But this lesson also made me think, isn't that all of us? Don't we all forget what is expected of us? Or maybe we just don't know what that is. Aren't we all just doing the best we can with what we have? All of us. The people we might be angry with, ourselves. And what are we forgetting? What is ultimately expected of us, which is simply to be and to love. But our egos or thinking mind gets in the way of letting things be as they are. This is the separation from our instinctual nature. As I was contemplating this talk, I remembered a favorite song by Heart called The Dog and the Butterfly. Some of you may have heard me talk a few months ago about my wish for a better world to emerge from a chrysalis of current events. The butterfly was the representation of how I wanted things to be different than they are. The words of this song can be a kind of koan, which is a paradoxical question, statement, or story used in Zen Buddhism to encourage intuitive understanding and break free from logical thought. It invites you to discover your own understanding. So I'm going to share a few of the lines from the song and invite you to make your own story of what is trying to be said here. There I was with the old man, stranded again, so off I'd ran. A young world crashing around me, no possibilities of getting what I need. He looked at me and smiled, said, no, 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 child. See the dog and the butterfly. Up in the air, he likes to fly. Dog and butterfly. Below, she had to try. She rolled back down to the warm, soft ground, laughing. She don't know why. She don't know why. Dog and butterfly. Oftentimes we hear people say, my dog saved my life. But it's not the dog who saves our lives. It's that we must work to be in balance for the benefit of our dogs and of others. When I teach self-compassion, one of the most important things I teach is mindfulness of how we are actually doing. Being aware, checking in, how am I doing? We don't do this very well. We don't know that we are out of balance. But a dog knows, and a dog tells you so. For some reason, it's easier to help oneself into balance for the benefit of them than it is for ourselves. But you don't have to have a dog to do this, and we are definitely not encouraging everyone to get a dog. It's a huge commitment of time and finances. But what about bringing to mind someone or something that mirrors you, mirrors how you really are doing? How are you really? And what are you doing to take care of yourself?
Thank you, Anna. That was beautiful. So we're going to move into our second, I'm going to call it more contemplation than a meditation, for just about 5 or 10 minutes. And this, I hope, will help to lead into sharing. So I'm going to ask a couple of gently guiding questions related to the themes that I mentioned before. And perhaps if you'd like, you could reflect on those and maybe even consider if you'd like to share about those in a few moments. So as we've learned, we all have our own stories and moments when our dog or someone else's opened up our heart and taught us something about being present or softened a hard place inside us. These are not trivial moments. They are Dharma gates, ordinary, intimate, and profound. So let's begin this short contemplation with an intention to listen with openness to the lessons of our own lives and perhaps our furry friends have already been offering us. So as I mentioned before, dogs are here now, no clinging to past or future. So let's reflect. What would it be like if we met each moment with that same openness? Next reflection question. Dogs embody metta in action. They don't hold grudges. Their forgiveness is instant and sincere. Let's reflect on, can we offer ourselves and others that same kind of acceptance in non-judgment? And moving into our third reflection, dogs show us that joy can arise from the simplest conditions. How much do we really need to be content? And moving into our final reflection question, how can we welcome aging, illness, change, and even death with the same soft-hearted wisdom that dogs seem to have?
Thank you.
Hey, well, thanks everyone. I just want to offer a couple of closing thoughts and then a short dedication of merit. We've covered a lot of ground this evening. It's been a real pleasure, especially working with Anna to put this together. So some of the key takeaways for me around dogs offering a mirror for presence, compassion, simplicity, patience, interbeing. And for me, dogs can teach me how to be present, to love without conditions, to recognize karma and work with it, to let go with grace, and to live ethically with care for all beings. And they can remind us that practice isn't separate from life. It's in the walk, the gaze, the quiet companionship. So let's close with a short moment to dedicate the merit of our practice together. And I do have about 3 lines, but before we go into that verse, I encourage you just to take a moment to check in with the body, heart, mind. And perhaps to formulate your own version of a dedication, whether it's towards reduced suffering for humans and animals, perhaps related to a specific pet, just something to personalize the end towards which our practice is focused. May any merit from this reflection be offered to all beings, two-legged, four-legged, winged, and finned. May we live with greater awareness, compassion, and humility. And may we learn from those around us, especially those with wagging tails and open hearts. Be well, everyone.